I think that all work on acceptance comes from self. So you're never ever gonna trust someone in a place where you wouldn't trust yourself. So, for example, say your partner is going on a night out and you know in yourself that maybe your ego is quite big. And maybe if you were to go on a night out, you would be looking at other people, fancying other people, maybe having desires here, there, and everywhere. Then, if they do that same thing, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to trust that they didn't do the things that you would have done. And then that's going to create insecurity for you. And even if you do trust that they would be honest with you, there's still going to be loads of negative feelings around that because you know yourself. So rather than it being a thing with them that they need to reassure you and pushing the blame onto that other person, we need to start bringing that into ourselves and looking at those places that make us feel uncomfortable and doing that work. It's a lot to do with our ego. So the bigger our ego is, the more that we need that external validation. Whereas from a place of self, we are a lot more content within us. We don't need as much. We don't need everyone to love us. We don't need everyone to fancy us because we just know that we're okay. And that knowing that we're good enough, just all on our own, that brings us so much self-esteem. That makes us feel so good about ourselves. Whereas when we take the ego route of, if this person likes me, then I'm going to get that rush of validation that makes me feel good for a moment. Yeah, it might, but then you're just going to keep chasing that forever and ever and ever. And it's never going to create high self-esteem. If anything, all that does is drops your self-esteem because everything comes externally. Nothing is coming from a place of self. So we need to start recognizing that it's that acceptance of self that makes us that powerful person that can start to accept other people. And for as long as we don't accept ourselves, we will never accept someone else. We'll never fully trust somebody else. So we will always be unhappy in a relationship. And it's not about the relationship work. It's always about the work we do with ourselves. And once we've done that work and we're in that powerful space of feeling good enough all on our own, that's when we can start to cultivate some really amazing relationships in our life that actually make us thrive and places where we can grow together. But if we're coming from this place of lack and this place of you complete me, I need you to make me feel good about myself, then there will always be problems. So I think that this is why I think that a lot of couples therapy doesn't work. And often when I work with couples, I highly recommend that they work separately with me as well or just on their own. Because once you sort yourself out, your relationship is naturally going to sort itself out too. Because most of what's going on in the relationship is simply a reflection of what's going on for you personally. And that's hard to accept. It's easier to believe that the other person is the problem. And I think so many relationships, they create all these rules and this control and this, let's make your world really small because then I feel safer. I don't like the fear of allowing, I don't want to set you free because I'm afraid of that. Like, I'm afraid what that looks like. But if we let go of all of that, we can see that really it's all just our own fears because we know ourselves and we know that maybe there's a lot of work we need to do before we think that we are okay, just as we are all on our own. And learning to love ourselves is the only work that's really going to allow us to truly be able to love another person. Because for as long as we don't love ourselves, we are going to find it extremely difficult to actually love another person.